Hi, beautiful teachers. Great to see you again. This is Nicola from Colourful Keys, and I have another little Tuesday teaching chat to share with you. Today's chat is going to be all about setting goals. Setting goals for your students, setting goals for you and your business, and how this can help to shape your year and keep you from getting stressed out by everything that's going on and keep you focused and on track. So if you're tuning in, please do say hi and let me know how you deal with goal setting in your studio. There are several layers to goal setting as I see it. And for me, when it comes to a piano studio, it all starts with the top layer, and that's what is your big picture goal for all of your students, for your whole studio. So what is it that you want to achieve through your teaching? It sounds like a big question, but I believe if you haven't answered this, then it's really tough to define the rest of the goals and to keep everything running as it should. If you don't know why it is that you're doing what you're doing, why you're teaching piano, why you're teaching music, what do you want for all of your students, what is your end game, then it's really hard to set the other things. So some examples of this might be, maybe you want to train the next concert pianists. If you want to do that, awesome. Maybe you want to train the next pianist who's going to play in a band, or maybe you want to train someone who could work at a church playing along with a congregation, or maybe, like me, you just want your students to have this as their little escape from reality for the rest of their life. So if they start working in a bank and things get really stressful, they can come home, sit at the piano, and just relax and shut off their brain and read through whatever it is that they want to read through. So maybe it's one of those, maybe it's none of those, but I'd love to hear what your goal is for your students in the comments, because I think if you can set this big picture goal for your whole studio, it really does bring so much clarity to everything else you do. So have a think about that. If you haven't ever thought about this before and you have no idea when I'm talking about it like right now, then maybe you could put in your diary, maybe set aside 15 minutes, half an hour to just brainstorm this idea of one big goal, of one sort of mission for your students. And I've talked about this in the podcast that's going to be released on Tim Topham's site this week. So we talked about that a little bit more there. But let me move on down a layer. So let's say you've got your top level goal. You know what it is you want for your studio generally and your students. Then you need to start setting the goals for individual students, say for this year, for this semester, still thinking quite big picture. And this is where your students should be getting involved. So your students do not set what type of teacher you are. Your students are maybe determined by what type of teacher you are. But once your students are there, I believe they should be involved in their own goal setting. So I think the older students get, the more you can get them involved in this process. And yeah, a 5-year-old is not going to have much say in this, but they will be able to do a little bit. So I did this before the summer using the, what should I call it? Anyway, it's a summer practice self-assessment. So if you search my blog for that, I'll put a link in the comments after the video is over. I did this before the summer with them, and they set their own goals for the next year. Now, some of them won't really make sense, and you'll need to guide them a little bit, but it's a really great idea to get them thinking about the next year and to get them looking forward and thinking about what's important to them. And it can reveal a lot. Some of my students, of course, some of them said, I want to learn a song from a film. Great. Just tell me which one and we'll do it. That was wonderful. Some of them said, I want to memorize more pieces. And that surprised me a bit from the students who said that. Or some of them were motivated by my challenge board, which was on the blog last week. I just uploaded a new version of that. So that's a board where all the different challenges are up there and they can work to achieve those things. So some of them were motivated by that and they said, I want to get the next level on that one. I want to get at least 3 challenges, something like that. So get your student involved, and then when you sit down to create the sheet, take into consideration their goals and your goals for them, and write some top goals. I like to, for a semester, I like to set 3 primary goals and 3 secondary goals. That's it. So those are my overarching goals for that semester. And I have them at the top of my planning sheet, the progress reports that I send to parents, so that when I'm writing the progress reports for them, I can see, are we on track to that? How are we going? What was my top goal? Is that what I thought? Is that still how I'm thinking about that student, or have I changed? Should I have changed or not? So setting these goals for each student, I think, is a really important part of starting a semester, starting a year, whatever way you want to, or a term, or whatever way it works for you. But setting aside a day where you can set up those goals in advance is really important. And then once you have your big picture studio goal and then your individual student goals, now we can talk about targets. And I've been talking about this idea of piano practice targets for a few weeks now specifically. I've talked about it before on webinars and stuff, but it's been on the blog a couple of times recently. Because I think this is a really good way to frame practice for students, to keep them focused on the results in a way that they really can latch onto and they can get. So if you've tried this idea of setting targets, I'd love to hear what it is you've tried and maybe some of the pitfalls that you've fallen into. When you are setting targets, these are things that you want to achieve week to week. That's how I think of this goals versus targets thing. Those are the way I'm using those terms. So the targets are, by next week's lesson, I want to be able to do this. I want to come to next week's lesson and do this with this piece. Now your targets, you may have heard of SMART, S-M-A-R-T, goals. So that kind of philosophy bleeds through really well to this. So that if you haven't heard that before, it's specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time-bound. You might hear different variations on that, but that's basically the idea. But that all that really means is, all that stuff means specific. So really specific. Can you say yes or no next week whether that was achieved? If it's not a yes or no answer, that's not a good target. You need to rethink that. So some examples might be, I want to play from start to finish with all the dynamics at half the performance tempo. That is specific. When they come back next week and they play the piece for you, they either did it or they didn't do it. There's no, wiggle room on that one. So that's what you want to be thinking about when you set these targets. What I do with these targets is I write them on their assignment sheet, but I also write them on a tiny post-it. I have these little post-its that fit by the title at the top of the pieces, and I just slot it up there. That's your target for next week. So they can't say, I forgot about it, I didn't look at my folder. Trying to get them to look in their folder is a whole other conversation. But for the time being, put it on their music. There's no debate. If you practice at all, you have to look at your music. So read the target. So they come back next week. Now, this is the really, really key thing. So don't forget this part. You need to check if that target was achieved. If you don't check up on it next week, they're going to think it doesn't matter. These targets are just a silly thing that she's talking about, and next week I'm just going to not do it and nothing will happen. I'm not saying there's repercussions or anything, but you need to check up on it. So they come back next week and you say, what was your target for this? And are you confident you can do it? Then they try to do it and we assess whether they did it or not. It really is that simple, but if you repeat this over and over again, you're keeping them focused on those results of their piano practice. And I think that is crucial. That's it's what's underlying everything. If you want them to work on specific practice strategies, they're not going to do it unless they're focused on the results. If they're focused on, say, the time, like say you've set a certain number of minutes that they have to do per week, if you set that up and that's the way you frame piano practice, then why would they use specific piano practice strategies? That makes no sense. They can just do whatever they want for 30 minutes a day and their practice is done. So framing it in this way is really important. I shared a freebie. Let me see if you can see this. You kind of see that? So that is the Bullseyes Challenge. This is all set up around practice targets. So if you download this from the blog, completely free, you will see, I'll put a link to it, you'll see the challenge rules, some examples here, and then the tracking chart, which you can stamp on or put stickers on or whatever is your style to try and get 30 practice targets. Now, I haven't set a specific time in the sheet. You should, but I wanted to leave it open. So if you want to be quite tough, it might be 10 weeks, 30 targets in 10 weeks. That's an average of 3 targets a week, so that's quite a lot of very focused work. 15 weeks might be nice as a sort of medium difficulty, or maybe you want to go easy on them the first time around and then try it again with a shorter time frame. So I left that off specifically so that teachers had some flexibility to set it up the way they want to set it up and to have some input there. So the 30 practice bullseyes is a great way to keep track of these targets, but the key thing is that you're asking about them. You're saying, how did you get on with that? Did you do it? Did you not do it? Let's see. No, you didn't do it, or yes, you did. And setting a new target for the next week, and so on and so forth. I want to tell you about something that's coming up soon. I'm doing this little project with Tim Topham, and me and Tim are working together on this. It's going to be inside the Vibrant Music Studio Teachers Facebook group. Now, we don't have all the details to announce yet, but I just wanted to give you a little hint that if you're watching this right now and you are not in that Facebook group, you have to get in right away, because we are going to be doing this project at the start of December that's going to help you find your why as a teacher, that stuff, that big goal that I was talking about at the start, and it's going to help you organize your business and get off to an amazing start for 2018. Can you believe it's almost 2018? Oh my gosh. So if you want to be part of that, or you want to find out the full details when they're released, make sure that you jump into the Vibrant Music Studio Teachers group right now before you forget, because then you'll get the notifications and you'll see all the details when it comes up. So that's all my stuff on goals. We've got these different layers. We've got your big picture, your goal as a teacher, why you're teaching, what you want for your whole studio and all your students. And you've got your individual student goals. Those are specific to that student, and they have input from that student, ideally as much as they're able for with the age that they're at. And then from there, you can set those weekly targets that are specific and measurable, and you check up on them regularly, and maybe you use the fun 30 practice bullseyes challenge from the blog to keep track of those and really focus on them in your studio. So I hope you enjoyed today's tips. I'll leave you there. I hope you have a wonderful Tuesday. Bye for now.